Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Alexander and I'm a guitarist, composer and overall music nerd from Copenhagen, Denmark. And today we're dialing in a Milton Clean patch on the Line6 Helix. Enjoy. If you're not so familiar with the term Milton Clean, I think it's made famous by the sort of British wave of modern day progressive metal band or modern metal bands such as the mighty Tesseract and Monuments and guys like that. And it's simply this very ambient and washy tone, but it still has these very sparkling or sort of spanky characteristics to it. I'm not particularly familiar with this style of tone, and especially not in Helix or Helix Native and stuff like that, but I thought I would give it a crack, and I actually think that the result was pretty darn cool. Before we dive into the tone demo so you can hear what this tone actually sounds like in a mix and the walkthrough so you can see how I went about creating it. As with every YouTube video, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, say hi to me down in the comments or come with suggestions of what tone I should be building next. And lastly, share the video with a friend who would also benefit from this video. Finally, I would like to direct your attention down to the links in the description. They're really awesome and they will help support me and support the channel, and it would be really cool if you would check them out. For example, you can head over to my website composition101.com where you can pick up my preset packs. Or maybe by chance you're looking for courses or lessons to help you write awesome music. I got you covered there as well. Alright, that was all of the shameless self-promotion. Let's dive into the tone demo. Alright, so welcome back to Helix Edit. As before mentioned, we are building a Milton Clean Tone, and this is also my first crack at this sort of stuff, and it's very different from building lead tones and metal tones and clean tones and all that kind of stuff, because there are simply a bunch of other characteristics that we are going for. And as I mentioned as well, it is this very first of all washy and sort of ambient sound where we're going for, but we'd also want that sort of spanky string slap kind of character, so it's not just super round and super washed out and reverb and delay. We of course want that as well, but we still want the sort of notes to cling through. But let's see what we got going on. Let's just start from the very left and go through it all. As you'll notice, it looks a lot different than it usually does. First of all, we have no amp and we have no cab, and in my opinion, or how I sort of researched how to get this kind of tone, it seemed to be one of the characteristics that it's basically just a direct out kind of tone that you sort of modulate with effects and stuff like that. And true to customs, not that it matters so much for this kind of tone. I am on my Fender Telecaster, a Jim Root Telecaster I should say, but I swapped the pickups for the Petrucci set, I believe the Crunch Lab and Liquid Fire, I think they're called. And I'm playing mainly on the sort of split setting because it naturally in the sort of clean signal brings out this more trebly spanky kind of character. So it suited this very well. So if you have something similar where you can split humbuckers and stuff like that, that is a head start and a good way to go. But of course you can do whatever you want. These are just guidelines, right? Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. First, I have an input gate on, fairly straightforward. Normally I would clamp the gate down super hard when we are playing metal rhythm style, right? But here I just left it on default at 500 milliseconds because it's basically not that important. It just takes some of the worst noise, and it's on -48, and I actually believe it's stock settings. Then The closest thing we're gonna get to an amp is the US Princess preamp. And we pop that on, and we get this very beautiful sound. Pretty DI, right? And the settings for this, I don't remember how much I actually played around with it, but the drive is at 2.7, bass at 2.5, mids at 7, treble at 8.4, master all the way up, channel volume at 7, sag and hum are both default at 5. Okay, so that doesn't sound very pleasant. Then next up, we go into a pitch whammy, or a sort of pitch shifter. And for this, the position is all the way to 100, yield is at 0, toe pitch is at plus 12, so that's an octave up. The mix is at 40% because I think it got a little too much around 50, and it's the same thing with reverbs and delays I found when doing lead tones and stuff like that. There's a really big difference between like 50 and 45, 48, 49, right? So basically half of the signal, at least to my ears, it makes a huge difference to just go a little bit under half in order for it to blend really well. But of course with that on, we get this. So we start to get that sort of synthesizer characteristic as well, right? And of course I played around with also having a pitch whammy that was pitched an octave down, and it didn't quite work for me. It got more synthesizer-like than I liked. Didn't make much sense, but the sort of synthesizer sound, or that kind of robotic sound, got a little bit too much, and it lost some of that Milton Clean characteristic that I was looking for. So what I did in the demo as well is I tracked the Milton Clean part first regularly with this on, and then I tracked the same thing but played an octave down to sort of emulate that kind of thing. So basically it was the thing that was played in an octave down still has an octave up effect on, so it's basically playing what I'm actually playing here, if that makes sense. But it worked out really well, and you get both that low kind of sound played for real, and you get the artificials octave kind of things that has this Milton Clean character, right? Okay, so next up we have a modulation thing, and I will not try to pronounce the name of this vibe. But what I did is I took it all the way down to basically whole notes, I would call that. Intensity all the way to 10 on chorus mode. The lamp bias, I think all of these are stock. Lamp bias at 5, spread at 2.5, mix at 50, and the level at 0 dB, right? Just to get a little bit of sort of wavy effects in there, right? Right? So you can hear we're sort of getting somewhere with this. This really made a difference. And I played around with a bunch of these effects. I was doing some chorus things and stuff like that. I think it's one of the only times I actually used the modulation part of the Helix. It was basically between this Vive pedal and the Pebble phaser that gave the effect that I was looking for, but I ended up using this. It just sounds really good. Okay, so lastly, before we dive into all of the time-based effects, which is of course the big thing when it comes to this kind of tone, I have an EQ block, and can hear it is fairly extreme, and that all makes a lot more sense when you pour a bunch of reverb on top of it, but it needs to be a little bit extreme for these specific frequencies that we want to pop out of that big carpet of time-based effect, right? Okay, so what I did, the two first, 31.25 Hertz is at minus 15, 62.5 Hertz minus 15 dB, 125 Hertz minus 4, 250 Hertz is boosted by plus 5.4, 500 Hertz is boosted by 3.3, the 1K is untouched, the 2K is boosted by 6.2, the 4K is boosted by 6.7, the 8K is boosted by 10.9 dB, the 16K is untouched, and level is untouched. And as I said, these are fairly extreme settings, and I believe I did them sort of by ear, so I tried not to look at how much I was boosting. I basically pulled the parameter until I think it sounded good, and I guess there's a little bit of a lesson in that sometimes, not following the guidelines or whatever. There's a lot of information out there, but in the end, if it sounds good, right? And it ended up doing that for this. Okay, so now the time-based effects. And as you can see, we have 2 reverb blocks. And again, I think I used these searchlights before, but it's the first time using the double tank reverb pedal. And it sounds like this. So it's fairly dialed back, right? It's not all over the place. Decay at 5.6, pre-delay at 0 milliseconds, rate at 25, modulation at 40, mix at 37, level at 0, low cut at 110, high cut at 6K. And trails are off. You can of course play around with this as much as you want. And I should say that this is of course made for the demo that you heard. So you can of course play around with the mix and the decay and all that kind of stuff for the time-based effects. It's super easy to sort of customize it to whatever song that you're using it for, right? And next up, I'm using the particle verb, and it's one of my favorite legacy reverb pedals or blocks, we could say. It is just super awesome for ambient stuff like this, right? So. Right? So it has that sort of shimmer kind of effect, right? So dwell is at 10%, condition is at stable, and the mix is at 53%, level at +1 dB. The delay, lastly, the transistor tape. Right, it really makes or breaks how this tone kind of works, right? And we get that semi-long delay. And an important part here is to say that I put it on triplets. So in the case of the demo I tracked it for, I'm playing straight notes, but having the echo in triplets give that kind of really, I think Tesseract and Monuments does it quite a lot as well, to get that sort of driving characteristic to it, right? So you are actually playing in straight time, but you get the sort of sense of it being in triplets, or at least being shuffled in a way or something like that, right? So I put the note sync at half notes, at half note triplets, I should say. Feedback at 67, so fairly extreme. Wow and flutter at 3.6. Mix at 63%, so quite aggressive, right? Level at 0, headroom at 0, trails are off, right? Right? So of course you can do a lot to play around with this, and this is just a really sort of specific example for the demo that I wrote. And I of course hope that you could use this tutorial and it gave you some inspiration and motivation to build a Milton Clean patch on your own and write some awesome music using it. I think there's an outro coming and I believe you should also watch it. See you there. Alright, so that is all for this week's video, guys. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch it. It truly means a lot to me. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel and like the video. Say hi to me down in the comments, or maybe share the video with a friend. And a special thank you goes out to all of you new subscribers that came in this month. It is truly awesome that there are so many of you. And of course, all of you old guys sticking around as well. It is truly awesome, and it really helps out pushing through and help me make more videos when times get a little tough. Alright, so that is all for this week, guys. Thank you very much again for watching the video. Stay healthy and stay safe out there. Until next time, see ya.